The sleek human stealth ship HFY Shadowhawk floated silently in space, totally invisible to the naked eye. Inside, Captain Roy Wright watched a view screen intently, his face locked in concentration. On the screen were two smug alien diplomats, openly mocking and laughing at a human transport shuttle docked with their space station. The aliens didn't realize that the real human ship, armed to the teeth, was spying on them the whole time. They were about to regret their arrogance. "Look, Niran, those stupid humans actually think they can negotiate with us on equal terms. Their puny brains are no match for our cunning." The fat green, pack-led diplomat Zoltar guffawed, slapping his knee in laughter. His laughter reverberated through the space station Omega-9's meeting room. "Indeed, my friend," replied Niran, an older pack-led. He smirked, his tentacles twitching with amusement. "In my 50 years as a diplomat, I've never encountered a species as pathetic as these humans. Captain Wright acts like he has a strong bargaining position, but everyone can see their transport ship is a rusting pile of scrap metal." On the Shadowhawk's bridge, Captain Wright clenched his fists, his blue eyes flashing with anger. He was a tall, muscular man with a stern expression. As the lead negotiator for the United Earth Federation, he had hoped to forge a fair trade deal with the other species. But it was clear now that the pack-led, along with their Zorgan and Crinian allies, had no intention of negotiating in good faith. They thought they could bully and mock the humans, believing them to be technologically and mentally inferior. If the talks failed, Earth would be unable to secure the vital resources it needed to rebuild after the devastating war with the Crixax. Millions would starve and freeze. But the smug aliens had underestimated human ingenuity and resolve. They had no idea that the HFY Shadowhawk, equipped with the most advanced stealth and weaponry in the galaxy, had been monitoring their every word and move, and Captain Wright was about to show them the true power and determination of the human race. He reached for the comms button, a grim smile spreading across his face. It was time to decloak the Shadowhawk and teach these arrogant aliens a lesson they would never forget. Niran paused to take a sip of his drink, as Zoltar leaned forward, hanging on to every word. "How you should have seen the looks on our faces when that menacing black ship just appeared out of nowhere," Niran said with a chuckle. One second, the view screen showed empty space. The next, this massive, sleek vessel shimmered into view, dwarfing our puny ships. It was like something out of a nightmare. Zoltar's eyes widened. "The HFY Shadowhawk, you said it was called? I've never heard of such a ship." Niran nodded. A cutting-edge stealth frigate designed for covert ops and diplomatic support. Captain Wright told us it had been monitoring the negotiations the whole time to protect his delegation and gather intel on the rest of us. Can you believe that? "Incredible," Zoltar breathed. "How did it remain undetected for so long?" "Advanced cloaking tech, reverse-engineered from Crinian stealth systems the humans captured in a previous war. At least, that's what Wright claimed." Niran shook his head. "To be honest, Zoltar, I was both impressed and unnerved by their little display. Made me realize we'd badly underestimated what these humans were capable of." Zoltar stroked his chin thoughtfully. "So what happened next, with the Shadowhawk looming over the proceedings?" "Well, the negotiations resumed, but the dynamic had clearly shifted. Wright and his team were emboldened now, pushing hard for better terms. And with that massive ship at their backs, they had the bargaining power to get what they wanted. Better trade agreements, political concessions, you name it. Niran sighed. "In the end, we gave them far more than we'd ever intended. But what choice did we have? The humans had played us all for fools." Zoltar couldn't contain his curiosity any longer, interrupting Niran's tale. "Hold on, Niran. You mentioned the Shadowhawk's advanced technology. Just how capable was this ship compared to our own vessels?" Niran leaned back in his chair, his expression a mix of admiration and frustration. "The Shadowhawk was in a league of its own, Zoltar. It was armed to the teeth with cutting-edge weaponry, like plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes. And that's not all. It had this sophisticated electronic warfare suite that could jam our sensors and communications like it was child's play." "Impressive," Zoltar mused, "but surely its cloaking device was its main advantage." You'd think so, but no. The ship's stealth capabilities went beyond mere cloaking. Its hull was coated in some kind of radar-absorbing material, and the design itself minimized its electromagnetic signature. It was like trying to spot a black pebble in the vastness of space. Zoltar's brow furrowed. Did we try to scan the ship to learn more about its technology? Niran let out a bitter laugh. Of course we did, but it was a futile effort. The Shadowhawk's defenses were too advanced, too robust. We couldn't penetrate them no matter what we tried. I must admit, Niran, I'm shocked. We Pakled have always considered the humans to be a primitive species, too caught up in their own internal squabbles to make any significant advancements in space technology. Niran nodded, his expression somber. You're not alone in that assessment, Zoltar. The humans' sudden emergence as a galactic power has caught many of us off guard. We underestimated them, dismissed them as nothing more than upstart primates. But now, with ships like the Shadowhawk at their disposal, it's clear we need to reassess our assumptions about this enigmatic race. Zoltar leaned forward, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. What do you think this means for the balance of power in the galaxy, Niran? If the humans continue to advance at this rate... Niran paused, taking a sip of his drink before continuing. You know, Zoltar, what really struck me about the humans during the negotiations was their unwavering composure. Even when faced with blatant hostility and mockery from some of the other delegates, Captain Wright and his team remained calm and focused. Zoltar leaned forward, his interest piqued. How so? I can't imagine the Zorgon or Crinian representatives were particularly welcoming to the newcomers. Oh, they weren't, Niran chuckled. In fact, they went out of their way to antagonize the humans at every turn. But Wright and his team never rose to the bait. They maintained a level of diplomacy and professionalism that was truly impressive. Diplomacy and professionalism, Zoltar scoffed. From what I've heard, the humans are a rather aggressive species. Surely they must have responded in kind to the provocations. Niran shook his head. You'd think so, but no. The humans employed a clever combination of diplomacy and subtle intimidation to assert their position. They never backed down from their demands, but they also never stooped to the level of their detractors. Subtle intimidation? Zoltar's eyebrows raised in curiosity. Let me give you an example, Niran said, leaning back in his chair. There was this one incident with a particularly belligerent Zorgon delegate. He was frustrated by the humans' refusal to compromise on a key trade agreement, and he decided to try and physically intimidate Captain Wright. What did he do? He stood up, loomed over Wright, and bared his fangs in a clear display of aggression. I think he expected the human to cower or retreat in the face of his posturing. Zoltar's eyes widened. And did he? Niran laughed. Not even close. Wright just sat there, calm as can be, and stared right back at the Zorgon. He didn't say a word, but his hand casually rested on the handle of his sidearm the whole time. It was a subtle gesture, but the message was clear. I'm not afraid of you, and I'm prepared to defend myself if necessary. Impressive, Zoltar murmured. I take it the Zorgon backed down? He did, Niran confirmed. Returned to his seat with his tail between his legs, so to speak. The other delegates were just as surprised as he was. I don't think any of us expected such fearlessness from a human. Zoltar stroked his chin thoughtfully. It seems these humans are a species accustomed to conflict. Perhaps their history of internal strife has prepared them for the challenges of interstellar diplomacy better than we anticipated. Indeed, Zoltar mused. With the Shadowhawk at their backs and their unwavering resolve, the humans managed to secure a deal that few would have thought possible when the talks began. It makes me wonder what other surprises they have in store for the galaxy. Zoltar leaned back, his eyes widening. Wait, you're saying the humans have developed an even more advanced propulsion system, one that surpasses anything we or the other species have? Niran nodded, his expression a mix of awe and concern. That's right. I overheard Captain Wright discussing it with one of his officers during a break in the negotiations. They called it the Prometheus engine, a fusion drive capable of propelling their ships at incredible speeds. Incredible indeed, Zoltar mused, stroking his chin. But how did they manage to keep such a breakthrough hidden from the rest of the galaxy? According to what I heard, the Prometheus engine was the result of decades of secret research and development by the United Earth Federation's top minds. They've been working on it behind closed doors, pouring vast resources into the project. Zoltar's brow furrowed. And you believe there's truth to these claims? That the humans aren't just boasting? Niran sighed, taking a sip of his drink before responding. At first I thought it was mere posturing, an attempt to further intimidate us, but after seeing the Shadowhawk in action, the way it moved and maneuvered, I began to suspect that there might be more to their words than I initially believed. Fascinating, Zoltar breathed, his mind racing with the implications. If the humans truly possess such advanced technology, it could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. Niran nodded solemnly. Indeed, and that's not a prospect that sits well with many of the other species, I imagine. A thought suddenly occurred to Zoltar, and he leaned forward, his voice lowering. Do you think the humans might be willing to share their technology with us, perhaps in exchange for certain concessions or favors? Niran let out a short, humorless laugh. I doubt it, my friend. From what I've seen, the humans are a fiercely independent and self-reliant species. They seem unlikely to part with their technological secrets easily, especially to those they consider potential rivals. Zoltar sat back, his expression pensive. A pity. Still, the mere existence of such technology is a game-changer. It makes one wonder what other surprises the humans might have in store for us. Niran nodded in agreement, his gaze distant. Indeed, and it underscores the need for us to reevaluate our assumptions about this enigmatic species. We can no longer afford to underestimate them, not with the kind of power they seem to wield. The two aliens fell silent for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts as they contemplated the implications of the humans' technological prowess. The revelation of the Prometheus engine had added a new layer of complexity to an already delicate situation, and it was clear that the galaxy would never be the same again. Zoltar leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Hold on, Niran. You're saying the humans not only secured better trade deals and political concessions, but they also managed to get a seat on the Galactic Council. How did they pull that off? Niran sighed, rubbing his forehead. It was a gradual process, Zoltar. As the negotiations progressed, Captain Wright began to introduce new demands on behalf of the United Earth Federation. At first, it was just the trade agreements, exclusive rights to certain resource-rich systems, preferential tariffs, that sort of thing. And the Council agreed to these demands? Zoltar asked, surprised. Not at first, Niran admitted. We all thought the humans were being overreaching, presumptuous even. They were relatively new to the galactic stage after all, but as the talks wore on, it became clear that they weren't going to back down. Zoltar nodded. I can imagine. With the Shadowhawk looming over the proceedings, they had a significant advantage. Exactly, Niran agreed. And then about halfway through the negotiations, Wright dropped the bombshell. The humans wanted a seat on the Galactic Council. What? Zoltar exclaimed. They actually demanded a seat at the table, after being spacefaring for what, a few decades? Niran nodded grimly. That was the general reaction, yes. The Zorgons were particularly outraged. They accused the humans of trying to subvert the established order, of not knowing their place. I can't say I blame them, Zoltar mused. So how did the Council respond to this demand? At first, we were united in our resistance, Niran said. The idea of granting such a young species a seat on the Council seemed absurd. But as the negotiations dragged on, cracks began to appear in our unity. Zoltar frowned. What do you mean? Niran took a deep breath. Some of the delegates, particularly those from species with weaker militaries, began to see the humans as potential allies. They argued that having them on the Council could serve as a check against the more aggressive species, like the Zorgons. I see, Zoltar said, stroking his chin. And I suppose the humans' technological prowess only added to their appeal? Indeed, Niran confirmed. In the end, after much debate and deliberation, the council agreed to grant the humans a provisional seat, subject to certain conditions and limitations. Zoltar's eyes widened. A provisional seat, what does that entail exactly? Niran leaned back in his chair. Essentially, it means that the humans will have a voice on the council, but not a full vote. They'll be able to participate in discussions and offer their perspective, but they won't have the same level of influence as the established members. And how did the other species react to this decision? Zoltar asked. Mixed, as you might expect, Niran said. Some viewed it as a necessary compromise, a way to bring the humans into the fold without fully upending the status quo. Others saw it as a dangerous precedent, a sign that the council was willing to bend to the whims of any species with a big enough stick. Zoltar nodded slowly. I can see both sides of the argument, but I have to admit, Niran, I'm still surprised that the humans managed to secure even a provisional seat. It's a testament to their determination and their technological edge. Niran sighed. Indeed it is, Zoltar. And I fear that this is only the beginning. With the Shadowhawk and the Prometheus engine in their arsenal, the humans are poised to become a major player in galactic affairs. We may well look back on these negotiations as the moment when the balance of power began to shift. Zoltar leaned forward, his brow furrowed in thought. Niran, I can't help but wonder, what do you think motivated the humans to push so hard for a seat on the Galactic Council? With their advanced technology, one would think they'd be content to go their own way. Niran took a sip of his drink, considering the question. You know, I've been pondering that myself. Despite their impressive capabilities, I suspect the humans may feel somewhat vulnerable and isolated as newcomers to the galactic community. How so? Zoltar asked, intrigued. Think about it, Niran said, setting his glass down. They're a young species, relatively speaking, and they're surrounded by older, more established civilizations. By gaining a seat on the council, they ensure that their interests are represented and protected. Zoltar nodded slowly. So they're seeking a way to level the playing field, as it were. Exactly, Niran agreed. They don't want to be left at the mercy of the more powerful species. A seat on the council gives them a voice, a way to shape galactic policy in their favor. Interesting, Zoltar mused. Did Captain Wright offer any insight into their motivations during the negotiations? Niran hesitated for a moment, then leaned in closer. As a matter of fact, he did. During a private conversation, Wright mentioned that the United Earth Federation had recently emerged from a period of internal conflict. They're eager to establish themselves as a major player on the galactic stage. Zoltar's eyes widened. Internal conflict? I hadn't heard about that. Neither had I, Niran admitted. But according to Wright, it was a tumultuous time for their species. Now that they've resolved their differences, they're looking to project their power outward. And they're willing to use their technological advantages as leverage to do so, Zoltar asked. Niran nodded. That was the impression I got. Wright hinted that the humans were prepared to ruffle a few feathers, so to speak, in order to secure their position. Zoltar sat back in his chair, stroking his chin thoughtfully. I wonder if we've underestimated the humans. Perhaps they're more formidable than anyone realized. I'm beginning to think the same, Niran agreed. Their combination of advanced technology, diplomatic savvy, and apparent willingness to use force if necessary, it makes them a force to be reckoned with. So what do you think this means for the future? Zoltar asked, his expression grave. Niran sighed. It means that the Pakled and all the other species will need to tread carefully in our dealings with the humans. We can't afford to provoke a confrontation, not when they have ships like the Shadowhawk at their disposal. Zoltar nodded, a sense of unease settling over him. A wise assessment, my friend. It seems the galaxy is changing and we must adapt if we hope to survive. The two aliens fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts as they contemplated the implications of the humans' rise to power. The future, once so certain, now seemed filled with uncertainty and potential danger. Zoltar's eyes widened as Niran recounted the tense confrontation between the Crinian delegate Corax and Captain Wright. He could almost picture the scene, the Crinian's face contorted with rage, his accusatory words hanging in the air like a challenge. "Corax demanded that the humans share their cloaking technology?" Zoltar asked, leaning forward. "I can't imagine Wright took kindly to that." Niran shook his head. Not at all. Wright's response was calm but firm. He looked Corax straight in the eye and said, "The United Earth Federation's technological secrets are not up for negotiation. We have worked hard to develop our capabilities, and we will not simply hand them over to satisfy your sense of entitlement." Zoltar let out a low whistle. Bold words considering the circumstances. "Indeed," Niran agreed. Corax was furious. He slammed his fist on the table and threatened to walk away from the talks, to rally the other species against the humans. A risky move given the Shadowhawk's presence, Zoltar mused. Niran nodded. But that's when Wright played his trump card. He activated a holographic display right there in the middle of the negotiation room. It showed a detailed schematic of a Crinian stealth ship, along with a list of its technical specifications and capabilities. Zoltar's eyes widened. The humans had intelligence on Crinian technology. "Not just intelligence," Niran said. Wright revealed that the humans had been studying Crinian stealth technology for years. They had used that knowledge to develop countermeasures and detection systems specifically designed to neutralize the Crinians' advantage. "Incredible," Zoltar breathed. "And Wright just offered to share these countermeasures with the other species." Niran nodded. He did. In one fell swoop he rendered the Crinian stealth technology obsolete. Corax's face went from purple to pale in a matter of seconds. He realized he had been outmaneuvered, that his bluff had been called. "I can only imagine," Zoltar said, shaking his head. "What did Corax do then?" "He backed down," Niran said. "Quickly and quietly. He agreed to drop his demands and let the negotiations proceed. It was a masterful display of tactical brilliance on Wright's part." Zoltar leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. The humans seemed to have a knack for turning their enemies' strengths against them. First the Shadowhawk, then the Prometheus engine, and now this. Niran nodded in agreement. The incident with Corax only served to further solidify the humans' position at the negotiating table. By the end of the talks, it was clear that they had established themselves as a force to be reckoned with. "A force that we would be wise not to underestimate," Zoltar said, his voice grave. Niran met his gaze, a somber expression on his face. "Indeed, my friend, the humans have proven themselves to be far more capable and cunning than any of us had anticipated. We must tread carefully in our future dealings with them, lest we find ourselves on the wrong side of their technological might." Zoltar leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face as he pondered Niran's words. "You know, Niran, I think you might be onto something. The humans' perspective on the universe, shaped by their unique history and experiences, could very well be the key to their success." Niran nodded, his eyes distant as he recalled his conversation with Lieutenant Reeves. It was fascinating to hear Reeves talk about human culture and their drive for exploration. He told me about their ancient explorers, brave men and women who set out across vast oceans in search of new lands and opportunities. "Explorers?" Zoltar asked, his interest piqued. "Like the ones who first ventured into space?" "Not quite," Niran replied. "These were explorers from long before the humans achieved spaceflight. They sailed across their planet's oceans in primitive wooden ships, navigating by the stars and the sun, with no idea what lay beyond the horizon." Zoltar's eyes widened. That must have taken incredible courage and determination. "Indeed," Niran agreed. "Reeves said that these early explorers faced unimaginable dangers, storms, uncharted waters, hostile native populations, but they pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity and a desire to expand their knowledge of the world." "And you think this same spirit of exploration and adventure has carried over into their approach to galactic affairs?" Zoltar asked. Niran nodded. "I do. Reeves also told me about the pioneers who settled the untamed regions of their planet, carving out new lives in the wilderness. They faced hardships and challenges at every turn, but they persevered, adapting to their new surroundings and finding ways to thrive. Zoltar stroked his chin thoughtfully. It seems that the humans have a long history of pushing the boundaries and embracing the unknown. No wonder they were so determined to secure a place on the galactic stage. Exactly, Niran said. And their motto, hope for the best but prepare for the worst, perfectly encapsulates their mindset. They're optimistic and ambitious, but they're also pragmatic and resourceful. They know that success is never guaranteed, but they're always ready to face whatever challenges come their way. Zoltar leaned forward, his expression serious. Do you think this mindset gives them an advantage over other species, like the Pakled? Niran paused for a moment, considering the question. I think it might. The Pakled and many other species tend to be more cautious and risk-averse. We prefer to stick to what we know, to maintain the status quo. But the humans, they seem to thrive on change and uncertainty. They're always pushing forward, always seeking out new opportunities and experiences. And that willingness to take risks, to embrace the unknown, you think that could be the key to their success? Niran nodded slowly. It's certainly a possibility. In a galaxy full of dangers and uncertainties, perhaps it's the species that are most adaptable, most willing to take chances, that will ultimately come out on top. Zoltar sat back in his chair, his mind racing with the implications of Niran's words. The humans, with their unique perspective and adventurous spirit, had already proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with. And if Niran was right, if their willingness to embrace the unknown was truly the key to their success, then the galaxy was in for a wild ride indeed. Niran's expression grew somber as he leaned in closer to Zoltar. There's one more thing, my friend, something that Captain Wright said to me just before the human delegation left Omega-9. Zoltar's eyebrows raised in curiosity. Oh, what was it? Niran took a deep breath, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. Wright pulled me aside for a private chat. He confided that the United Earth Federation's true goal wasn't just to establish itself as a major player on the galactic stage, but to become the dominant power in the known universe. Zoltar's eyes widened in surprise. Dominant power? What do you mean? Wright explained that the humans, having witnessed the constant squabbles and conflicts among the other species, believed that they were uniquely qualified to bring order and stability to the galaxy. He hinted that the United Earth Federation was willing to use any means necessary to achieve this goal, including military force and covert operations. Zoltar leaned back in his chair, a troubled expression on his face. That's unsettling, to say the least. Did he give any specifics? Niran shook his head. No, but the implications were clear. Wright's words sent a chill down my spine, Zoltar. I came away from that conversation with a newfound sense of unease about the humans and their intentions. Zoltar stroked his chin thoughtfully, his brow furrowed. It seems we may have underestimated the humans' ambition and ruthlessness. Their advanced technology and military prowess, combined with their apparent willingness to use them, could pose a serious threat to the existing balance of power in the galaxy. Niran nodded grimly. Indeed, the events at Omega-9 have set in motion a chain of events that could have far-reaching consequences for the entire galaxy. I fear we may be standing on the precipice of a new era, one dominated by human influence and control. As they rose from their seats, Niran and Zoltar shared a look of understanding. They parted ways with a sense of foreboding, each wondering what the future may hold now that the humans had made their presence known. The implications of the humans' arrival on the galactic stage weighed heavily on their minds, and they knew that the potential for conflict and upheaval had never been greater. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.